Okay, so next up on our list of wonderful speakers is Solomon. Can I see Solomon? He might be on there. Oh, there he is in the top corner. Uh, so we're going to unmute you, Solomon, and you're going to give us a lowdown on the 1987 caucus and how we can help.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. And it's good to see lots of familiar faces. I want to shout out a few colleagues from the 1987 caucus that are on the call as well, because I saw that Jermaine, Trey, and Kadeem are all here as well. So welcome to you guys. Essentially, a group of young African Caribbean men decided that we felt it was our time to organise, that historically over the last 30 years or so, our voice hasn't been as prominent as it should be in the Labour Party. And so we came together and named ourselves the 1987 caucus in respect to that historic moment in 1987 when we had the first 4 Black and Asian MPs elected to Parliament. And our group is essentially a safe space for young Black men. It's a non-factional group, and I think that that's important because there's often a perception that diverse communities are a homogenous group, that if you're Black, Asian, or whether you're Latinx or any other ethnic minority, that you should all kind of have the same views. And we have slightly different views. But broadly, what we want to do is we do want to see better representation in the Labour Party of young African Caribbean men, but also of all ages. We want to see African Caribbean men represented, not just in Parliament. When I say in the party, this is also on quite a granular level, whether you're, a CLP secretary or a CLP chair, or in the House of Lords, and particularly in the trade union movement, where we often see underrepresentation of Black men. We also about influencing change, policy change and structural change within the party, and campaigning on some of the issues that diverse communities face and trying to influence the Labour Party's policy direction. And I think we are a group of young Black men, but there's power in the fact that we stand as an isolated group that stands in solidarity with other groups. So we just as much want to see the kind of successes that the Labour Party has had on representation of women in the party, that we stand in solidarity with LGBT communities, with organisations like the Socialists of Colour and our brothers and sisters of colour from other ethnicities. And I think there are a few things I wanted to mention. I think the Labour Party often claims the moral high ground on racism, and it's difficult to do that, to say that we're an anti-racist party, until we really tackle issues of racism in our party. And I think no matter where you are on the political spectrum, whether you're on the left of the party, whether you're on the centre of the party, I just feel that the kind of abuse and experience that people like Diane Abbott have had to face is not acceptable. And no matter where you are on the party, these are people that have trailblazed for diverse people like me. When I saw people like Dawn Butler as the first Black female minister, that was someone that inspired me to get into politics. And then to see people in our own party attacking those people, to see people in our own party being derogatory towards people like Diane Abbott, does not make me or other people of colour feel welcome. And so I think that's a really important point. There's some stats. Since 1987, there have only been 4 Black men elected as Labour MPs. There's only 81, well, we have about 1,000 BAME councillors, and 81 of them are Black men. And there's a question about why men, and I think it's because African Caribbean men face a range of challenges that are actually quite unique. If you think about our interactions with the criminal justice system, with exclusions from school, with being more likely, I think 4 times more likely to be stopped and searched, with our treatment by the media. These are quite unique challenges that we face. And I think these challenges within a context of where our politics is at the moment, I wanted to touch on that a little bit, because I said before that the Labour Party often will claim the moral high ground on racism. And we've made, the Labour Party has been at the forefront of major change over the last 100 years that has benefited oppressed groups. But equally, I think after the 2019 election, we talked a lot about losing the red wall. And I like to think of our BAME voters as a bit of a red wall as well. And I think if we're going to learn about the fact that since 2001 we've been losing support in the north of England, we need to recognise that we run the risk of losing substantial support from BAME voters. It really upsets me that when I look at the cabinet of our country, I see Priti Patel and Rishi Sunak, 50% of the great offices of state, as BAME people. Yet the Labour Party's shadow cabinet is not as representative in the most senior positions. It's still, we still too much put black and minority ethnic people in a box by putting them in positions of equalities and or social justice or the justice secretary. And I kind of think, why can't we have a diverse chancellor who might think about how spending policies impact diverse communities? I think that's quite important. Though I recognise, Lisa Nandy's appointment as well. I think the Tories will run the risk of starting to win on representation because I think we have to recognise that in the last, I think it was in the 2017 election, more candidates were black and minority ethnic standing for the Tories than for the Labour Party.
Wow, I actually didn't know that. That's really shocking.
We also, it might be the 2015, but I think it was. But we also have to recognise that there's a danger that if we see representation in the Tory party excelling representation in the Labour Party, then we have to think about the risks of that for BAME communities. Because I'll tell you that when Priti Patel creates an anti-immigration narrative, it's much more difficult for us to challenge when she is a woman of colour who can claim her own lived experience of racism. And so it's really important that we at least meet the Tories on their representation, that we're not falling behind, because that's not a place that the Labour Party needs to be. I also think that Labour Party needs to change some of its language. Even when you look at the back of your membership card, you still see that we're a party that campaigns for tolerance. And I don't think we should be tolerating people of colour or people that are different. I think we should be embracing them and having them as part of our movement. And I think there's another issue which I've noticed, which is about seeing people of colour and diversity in our party as helping to strengthen the policy decisions that we make. Because unfortunately, the track record that we've been having at the moment when we look at parliamentary selections is, okay, let me give you an example of this. So we have someone like Nusgani, who's a Tory MP, the MP for Wealdon. She's a prominent ex-minister who is an MP for a constituency that's 97% white. Me as a black man, I grew up in Hastings, an area that's 97% white. The Tories, they will put their diverse candidates in areas where they think they're going to win. We put our diverse candidates either in areas we think they're going to lose or areas where we think we'll get an electoral advantage from them. And it's not good enough because it patronises the capability that we have to bring something to the political landscape. So we're more likely to select a Muslim candidate if the area has more Muslims, or we're more likely to select a black candidate if the area has more black people. And I didn't think that's good enough for the type of people that we are, here today. And I think, there is something, I'll kind of finish on this point, I think lots of people say to me how shocked they were when they see stuff said about or see the treatment of people like Diane Abbott, people like David Lammy, Clive, Dawn, are kind of our representatives. But I'll tell you, they are not surprised by the treatment that they get. And people like, when we had our first meetings in 1987 Caucus, we had Clive Lewis join us. And he made it quite honest, the fact that we have to recognise that as people of colour, we'll always have to be exceptional to get somewhere, because it's always going to be that bit more difficult. And so I think that we have to recognise that there are some real struggles that people like me, people like Saranya, like Jermaine, Trey, Kadeem, that we're willing to fight against. But what we do need is some solidarity with people to make it that little bit easier for us to get through the barriers that are there. And I kind of look forward to taking any questions.
Thanks so much, Simon. That was really energising.